Andrew Carnegie didn't even graduate from primary school. He barely made it to the 4th grade. Nevertheless, he became a man of world-class intelligence and wealth. He was self-taught. Despite his self-learning, he became so wealthy that people asked him to share the secret of his success. In this Carnegie Steel Corporation, in front of thousands of people, he would give lectures on the ways to become rich. According to his theory, there are 6 steps to riches. First, fix in your mind the exact amount of money you desire. Not just a lot. Be definite as to the amount. Second, establish a definite date by which you intend to possess the money you desire. Third, determine exactly what you intend to give in return for the money you desire. I'd say earning $10K a month running a hair salon or a mom-and-pop grocery store would be nearly impossible. These services don't give enough revenue. So far, I have touched on how much, by when, and what. Let me carry on to the next 3. Create a definite plan for carrying out your desire. 5th, write all these down on a piece of paper. They didn't have computers in those days. 6th, read your written statement aloud twice daily, once in the morning and once at night. How did the steel workers react? That's ridiculous. That's not going to make us rich. Only about 20% of them followed Carnegie's advice. That 20% indeed became rich. This is exactly what autosuggestion is all about. It's true even now. However, Carnegie was not a scholar. Even though he wasn't a scholar, his experiences proved him right. Psychologists couldn't agree with him more about this autosuggestion concept. Okay. I've been lecturing about capital for some time. It doesn't matter if you forget everything else, but this capital must be remembered. People don't realize that we all have our own sense. Medical doctors say that our senses are determined by what we eat. If you consume garlic, your body will smell like garlic. The food you consume decides what you smell like. However, we don't consume only through our mouths. We acquire through our eyes, ears, and even through our minds. There is an expression that goes, make up one's mind. The Analects of Confucius teaches pregnant women not to look at bad things, not to hear bad things, and especially not to eat bad food. That all makes sense, right? Don't bear harmful thoughts. The baby is harmed by those bad influences. Ancient wise people said that eating or consuming is done not only through our mouths, but through our eyes, ears, and minds. The results of your consumption show through the smell of your body. Let me tell you about being lucky with people. It means that a person has a fragrance. Fragrances attract bees and butterflies. A fragrant person has been consuming only good things through his eyes, ears, and mouth. Especially through his mind, he took in only pleasant experiences. If your mind acquires only pleasant things, you will have a fragrance. Just as with bees and butterflies, people will flock toward you. There are 2 things that can hover over you. Just as fragrances attract bees and butterflies, terrible odors will attract flies, roaches, and other disgusting creatures. When rotten, power and money reek of corruption, which will in turn attract rotten people. When that odor disappears, that crowd vanishes with it. When fragrances attract bees and butterflies, there will definitely be seeds and fruit. You want those bees and butterflies around you, so that you can bear the fruit called compensation. You want your dreams to come true, don't you? Don't let your dreams be only wishful thinking. Dreams come true only when they are combined with definite and concrete objectives, planning, and execution. Just wishing will never make them come true. Merely saying, "I want to become the world's best soccer player," is only wishful thinking. You actually have to do something. You must practice every day and undergo serious physical training. Only then can your dreams come true. Dreams do come true. You want your dreams to come true, and don't want them to be merely illusions. It's much easier and more carefree to be a follower than a leader. Leaders have it tough. Leaders have to come up with new ideas and brave unbeaten paths. Does anyone around here want to be ordered around all their lives? With Atomy, it's nearly impossible to live only as a follower. You can't stay at the bottom for long because you will have partners. Always consider everything from this point of view and look ahead to the future. This net represents capital. You want your net to continually expand with people constantly flocking to it. For this, you must have a nice scent. Being lucky with people means that you are surrounded by many talented people. There must be a good reason for these people to follow you. Our diets determine the smell we put out. What about the toxins that build up in our systems? What do you call the process that removes these toxins? It's called detoxification. Removing poison from your body is called detox, to be simple. Speaking of detoxification, it can be assisted by taking in good water and good food. However, mental, psychological, and emotional detoxification can't be done with a good diet. Detoxification of our minds is far more important. Without detoxifying your mind, you will always stink of negativity. Food is easily removed, but if you keep having bad thoughts, you will always carry a terrible stench. In the end, only smelly, gross insects will surround you. So, how can we detoxify our minds? It has a lot to do with building capital. You start from here in this network, and you want yourself to spread out to many people. These are your bees and butterflies. Those bees and butterflies will keep pollinating, so that you can keep bearing good fruit. Eventually, those fruits will grow into enormous social capital. You can forget everything else, but please remember how to expand your capital. Needless to say, it is best if you inherited a fortune from your parents. If you owned a nice rental building in a booming commercial area, you wouldn't be sitting here, would you? However, even that kind of asset can disappear. Without solid human capital, you might have legal problems, for example. Let me draw the Chinese character for human. The word human sits slanted like this. This side represents our exterior, or the external self, which is seen by others. The external self is positioned in a crooked posture. Why is that? People are born with pride, and if it's hurt, we can become enraged. The external self has a tendency to swell when we become rich, gain power, and rise in mastership. It becomes swollen like this. I am a royal master. If you don't obey me, I'll drop you like a bad habit. You'll drop me? Where will you drop me? I've had a few contractors complain to me that someone said this to them. They were told, no one will be successful once I drop them, so you'd better listen to me. Again, when your mastership goes up, you make more money and gain more power. So your external self becomes larger. I'm not saying that it's bad, it's just human nature. That's just how we are. The issue here is that when your external self is so big, how will it affect your internal self? The internal self is your culture, character, personality, and qualities. If it is very weak, do you think it can support your external self? It will collapse and be crushed. They will crash to the ground together. Only when the internal self gets as big as the external self will it be able to support the external self and allow you to stand. Imagine if only one of our legs ever grew longer, while the other stayed the same length. You would never be able to stand and would constantly fall to the ground. That's what's happening in our society. Some mastership holders are extremely busy. They get tons of requests for lectures. Many centers ask those leaders to give lectures and would like to have consultations with them. What sort of leaders get such urgent requests? Only those with large internal selves are ever asked. People with large external selves, but small internal selves, are usually not asked. They are often actually turned down. We're talking about the internal self. Without it, we would suffer in isolation. You would be consumed by loneliness. No matter how high your mastership was, you'd feel isolated. People wouldn't invite you to give lectures and wouldn't want to listen to what you have to say. You would be rejected even if you offered free lectures. What should you do if this ever happens to you? Cultivating the internal self is how you truly expand your capital. When the internal self grows, the external self grows with it. Internal self includes your class, character, knowledge, wisdom, and whatnot, that are all invisible to the naked eye. Although invisible, they produce a pleasing aroma that will attract many followers. Again, in order to expand your network, you must detoxify yourself. The most important detox is for your mind and heart. Let's say you make up your mind to do the detoxification. I'm going to be a big person starting today. Is that going to happen overnight? Economic scholars call current industries persuasion industries. Without the ability to persuade customers and clients, no industry can survive. Persuasion is everything these days. It is its own industry. Network marketing requires persuasion skills more than any other industry. We don't really have land, plants, or properties. But we established a big net called the human network. It is invisible, but it still qualifies as capital. We don't even have patents or copyrights. How then can we convince people with authenticity? In other words, you should approach people sincerely. Let me tell you about a book called Rhetoric that was written by Aristotle 2,300 years ago. He explained how to persuade people. using the 3 elements of persuasion he describes in the book. Many scholars agree that his theory of persuasion still rings true even in modern times. It has been thoroughly proven through extensive research. The first element of persuasion is logos, which means logical speaking and appealing to rationale. These products are of absolute quality and of absolute prices. The 6-item set has superior ingredients and thus is better than any other. Don't take my word for it, it's all proven in the video clips. Is what I just said logical or not? I didn't make this up. Our researchers developed it, and it was showcased in several media formats. If we publicized something false, we would get in legal trouble on grounds of false or exaggerated advertisement. We must make claims that make sense and can be proven. Korean people are among the most educated in the world. When a nation has Human Development Index higher than 0.82, it is considered very high. Korea's HDI is nearly 0.9. which reflects the highest average education levels of its citizens. Koreans are not likely to believe illogical claims. Nevertheless, the percentage that logos contributes to persuasion is only about 10%. Aristotle made this claim, and it holds up even today, supported by carefully researched studies. The second element is pathos. Pathos, which appeals to emotions. No matter how logical a salesperson sounds, if you don't like her, you won't buy anything. If you don't like how they look, you simply won't buy. Let's assume the person in front of you is suffering some sort of skin problem, so she is in a very bad mood. You tell her what you're selling is effective for her skin problem. This kind of persuasion is appealing to her emotions. Whether your speech is logical or not is secondary. Pathos contributes 30% to any attempt at persuasion. 60% remains and depends on something called ethos. Which means credibility. Can I trust what this person is saying? Credibility is what I've been telling you about regarding the fragrance of your body. In other words, are you a person people feel they can believe? This composes 60% of the persuasion attempt. Whether the salesperson speaks correctly, whether the company is a reasonable one, and whether they sell good products at low prices or not, only make up 10% of sales talks. Many business experts in the US have found this to be completely true. They researched the chances of salespeople's success. What were the results? Surprisingly, the appearance of a salesperson decides 80% of the sales. Appearance here doesn't refer to how good-looking they are. It refers more to their manners, the way they talk, or the sincerity they show during the sales pitch. The quality of goods or the reputation of the manufacturer mattered less than 10%. Most importantly, whether you can trust the person who actively solicits you to sign up or to buy goods represents 80% of your decision. Can I take this person seriously? It doesn't matter if you're good looking or not. Some people just look like con artists for some reason. It's because they have lived like that all their lives. What they're thinking shows through their faces, which are apparently dishonest. I'm sure you've all met someone like this. Therefore, you really need to develop your internal self. Just as the Chinese character for human, when doing the Atomy business, your external self will continue to grow. Your mastership will go up and your income will go up with it. What will go up even higher will be your ego. You can become full of hot air and begin acting stuck up. If your internal self can't support your external self, your entire self will crash face first to the ground. It will seem as if all your downlines are collapsing. Instead of growing, they will all fall apart. Look at what is happening in society right now. People who used to wield so much power have fallen because they hadn't established this internal self. If you instead develop it, you will be equipped with capital. In the Analects of Confucius, learning is classified into two types. One is learning to gain wisdom for oneself. The other is learning to accomplish exterior goals. The first expression contains a word that refers to oneself. Conversely, the other expression refers to others. Simply speaking, one type of studies benefits ourselves, and the other helps other people. I warn you to be very careful in interpreting these, since they are a bit complicated. Pay careful attention. Learning to gain wisdom for oneself refers to learning that disciplines your character, improves your morals, and enhances your class, and cultivates your knowledge. These studies mean learning to gain wisdom for oneself. In other words, if you focus on disciplines for your personality, character, culture, and thus become a lady or a gentleman, crowds will naturally be drawn to you. On the contrary, learning to accomplish exterior goals refers to learning intended for gainful purposes, so that you can work with and help other people. Learning to gain wisdom for oneself is ongoing. For our character and personalities, there is always room for development. There is no ending to this kind of learning. The other type of learning does have an end. Let's say you studied to pass the bar exam. Once you pass the test, you would be finished studying for it. Let's say you study to become a civil servant. After passing the test, no one continues to study for it. Why would they? They already reached the goal. Here I am, stressing again why these disgraced government officers are going through such humiliating consequences. It's because they neglected learning for one's own wisdom. They were only interested in learning to gain something. Their internal selves were too weak to support their massive egos. They fell apart. With learning to gain wisdom for oneself in mind, you will have a humble attitude in learning. What you learn through Atomy will help you discipline your character and values, so that you can become a lady or a gentleman. In the end, you will become a person of amazing fragrance. With only learning to accomplish exterior goals in mind, you will give out all kinds of terrible odors. At first, you might have some people follow you, but in the end, people will blame you for any and all failures. In conclusion, what you must remember is how to grow your capital. Your internal self determines your mastership and income. Please keep that in mind. Thank you for listening.